Hello, hello. Welcome once again with the Raven, the Sprite Raven. I'm your host of the Sprite Raven, 33-year veteran of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And with me, as is common these days, are my co-hosts Chris Hall and John Norris.
Hello, hello.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, this is going to be a really crazy week. There's been a lot of updates with the Diamond situation. We talked a little bit about Diamond last week and what had led to the crisis that we're having, but how bad has it become in the weeks past? Well, it turns out that companies like IDW have announced that they're going to possibly be endangered moving forward because what's happened is PRH, Bigger Random House, who was subcontracting Diamond to distribute some of their books, Diamond hasn't paid them back for those books. And it turns out, maybe through some language in their contracts, that they're going to cause the debit that's owed by Diamond to now be by the publishers. This could be IDW, this could be Dark Horse, this could be Dynamite. This is probably why Marvel is in such adamancy to be involved directly with the bankruptcy court on the proceedings, because they want to make sure they get their monies out of it. So there's just a whole lot of problem here that could be affecting pretty much everybody moving forward, certainly within the next 6 months and probably beyond into the next 2 to 3 years of possibilities with this situation. What's also been determined and alluded to is the possibility that Diamond will close much sooner than they had anticipated. They were looking at possibly closure by the end of 2025. Now it's looking as soon as April, which means that makes sense as to why books are being delayed at stores. You're not receiving books on time. This week was supposed to be the Diamond catalog. There was no Diamond catalog, just the individual catalogs from the publishers that Diamond ships. So I got the Marvel catalog, the IDW catalog, and the Image catalog, but not the actual thick book. And I'm beginning to wonder if we're going to actually see one, because if they close in April, it would make no sense to release a February book when those books are supposed to ship in April and you wouldn't be there to distribute them. Why would you put a catalog out? So that might be why we didn't get one this week. So I'm just, speculating on that, but it is a very possible scenario. Like I said last week, both the publishers and the retailers needed to have addressed this situation a long time ago. It wasn't. We're at where we're at. It's very strange. And Chris, you wanted to mention how your associate or friend Ben Dunn over at Antarctic Press was not even responding to this information, basically.
He was responding, but he was basically saying, it's just going to be business as usual. We're not going to go out of business. It's all going to be fine. So.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Like I said, yes. One way or another, I think everybody who's been around as long as Ben has been around for 25, 30 years.
Right.
He'll find an alternative means to get books out. That's not the issue. It's just a matter of timing, and I'm sure he's already been engaged in working towards that goal. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what we can do is try and keep everything as calm and as normal as possible while we work towards finding other solutions. Is what any of the publishers can really do right now. But it does look bad.
Which you said is largely in part, or it has largely to do with how retailers are going to be moving forward as far as trusting another distributor or multiple distributors.
Right. Well, they've been conditioned or brainwashed, whatever frame of reference you want to use, to be just with Diamond since the mid 90s. And when you do that, anytime you bottleneck your distributor, if something happens, well, what happens now? You have no other alternatives. It sets everybody else, askew. And while we've tried many times to build regionals, there was heavy resistance because they didn't carry Marvel and DC. Well, now we're in a situation where Marvel and DC are at different distributors, but they've only got so much space for whoever they're carrying too, and they can't carry everything for the indies. So it's a big situation where retailers have to understand, and some do and some don't. Some of them have adapted or in the process of adapting, but you have to have 3 to 5 different distributors for your stores, and especially if you're doing more than just comics. A lot of these people are doing your toys and they're doing gaming and cards and stuff like that, and it can't all just come from one source. Even though Jeppy Enterprises Diamond had the Alliance gaming and toys and stuff as well, you're better off to have multiple distribution streams just for the sake of a backup to your primary. And we just haven't had that, and we need to do that. And it can't be done. It's not going to be happening overnight. It's going to take a while to build it. It's going to take a while for retailers to not only acknowledge it, but access it and build a rapport with these companies. So it's going to be growing pains for the next 2 to 3 years, probably.
I would imagine so, yeah. I guess the question is can these companies remain solvent, and profitable in that time?
Marvel should be able to. IDW, I don't know, because they've been dealing with a lot of problems on their own for years. Dynamite, I'm not sure about. Dark Horse should be fine. Their parent company's large enough to keep them going, and they'll probably focus a little bit more on film and television to keep more revenue coming into the stream. Right. I think, which means they're gonna be barking up Netflix's door about things that Netflix either canceled that was Dark Horse related or never released that was Dark Horse related, and say, hey, you bought this shit, let's get this stuff going,
Right. You think it's going to get bad enough to where they're going to be like, well, I guess Neil Gaiman isn't that bad.
No. I'm not talking about Neil Gaiman. I'm talking about Grendel, Matt Wagner's Grendel.
Yeah, but you think things are going to get.
I'm talking about Usagi Yojimbo that was released and then canceled. They need to bring that back and start focusing a really strong campaign to that. They've got other content that they've got in development that has nothing to do with Neil, that Netflix has options for. So it's not that, like Dark Horse has already canceled everything that they're doing with gaming pretty much. So I don't think that we're going to see anything with that necessarily, unless Gaiman's name is removed and all the monies that were going to go to him are agreed to in contract to be proceeded to different parties, like even to the parties of the, I won't say the parties, the accused parties, if they are found to be in favor of the court of law, that Neil owes them, then okay, pay them off with that money, or put it towards, like abused persons groups or whatever,
Yeah. That's a la, Jeepers Creepers type of situation.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, there are options there. I don't know if those options are there as much for other companies, though, because there's so many companies like Aftershock, which has been failing miserably. Scout Comics has the same problem, where they've gotten their investment from Hollywood, but when you buy an option, it's for so much time to option it, and then they have time to see if they can develop it. And okay, is it developed? Okay, is the studio going to pick it up or not? Is there going to be investors for the pickup? All these different factors come in. We're talking about stuff that has to actually already be developed, has backers to make that work. Because if we're in a process of waiting for other people, it's just going to be stagnant, I think. Partly because of the way the economy is looking to go, I think, in the next year or two. I don't know. It's going to be real interesting to see where things go, because, I think there's just a lot of companies doing a lot of recycled content that they already own, rather than develop the stuff that they've bought options for.
And if there's certain companies run out the clocks for the option to like develop into a film, they can always go the Fantastic Four route and hire Lloyd Kaufman to pop out a low budget turd of the movie.
Technically they could, but I don't think they want to.
Well, keep it in the right hands.
Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of like the whole situation. I mean, it's not even a matter of who's in it or whether it's good or bad or whatever. It's like the Dead World versus Walking Dead situation. Dead World was optioned 7 times before Walking Dead. It just never got made. And it just so happened that the right guy optioned Walking Dead, who had the right contacts in the right situation to get it picked up, and then once it was picked up, it got made, it got out there, and it became successful. So, it is what it is as far as that goes.
Right.
So let's go ahead and get into our crazy reviews this week, because we got a bunch of them to do. But hopefully we'll get some answers as to where things are going moving forward soon.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
And if you're out there in the comments, say hi.
Yes, please
jump
do.
in, say hi, say something.
Okay, our first book is Borealis from Dark Horse Comics, 1 through 3, $3.99 each. Writers were Mark Verheiden and Aaron Douglas. Artist is Cliff Richards, with colors by Guy Major and letters by Jim Campbell. The editor is Chris Warner. Genre is supernatural sci-fi thriller. Originally released in December 23 to February 2024 in singles, and has been available in trade paperback since July of 2024. What it's about: Alaska State Trooper Silaluk Sil Osha returns home to her rural hometown of Kinu, Alaska, where the winter nights last months, temperatures can hit 70 below, alcohol is illegal, and something mysterious is emerging on the remote ice. After 13 years away, Trooper Osha is called in to investigate a series of gruesome slayings, but the deeper down the rabbit hole she goes, the more she is drawn into horrific memories of her past and her own mysterious abilities tied to her native Alaskan ancestry. Can she resolve to stop the killings of the corrupt town officials and their mobster connections while still safeguarding the people, or will she find her own monster too destructive to control? Well, what did I think? This has been a series I've been sitting on for far too long. I bought it in singles. I just hadn't gotten around to reading it until this week. I know I wanted to get it because of the Alaska Native tribal connection, being Native American myself. But I also kind of feared that it would be too similar to the late 1990s comic series Whiteout by Greg Rucka and Steve Lieber, which was a very good series in its own right. There were a number of potential parallels. So while I bought it, I don't know. I wouldn't say I reluctantly listed. I just kept waiting to get to it, I guess. So I finally get to it. The tone of the story is a little bit too foul-mouthed for my liking. I'm not a big fan of too much cussing for the sake of cussing, I guess you could say. And it felt like that was a little bit going on, especially in the first issue. And it was rather distracting as I was being introduced to various characters. Still, our lead character turns out to be a junkie cop who's high on fentanyl when she's attacked by the, I don't know if it was Anchorage, might have been Anchorage, but the deputy mayor's nephew anyway. And she ends up killing him in self-defense. That's not going to look good on her record, so her boss sends her home to Kinu to lay low and resolve whatever's going on with this so-called street gangs dispute up there, which is more or less just get her away from where she's at so that the other people down where she was won't come after her. What they don't realize, though, is that she has what is known as an Inuit dark spirit called a Pinalak inside of her that has its own agenda. Her old mother, grandmother, that she calls her old mother, but it's her grandma, who took her in as a child and raised her, knows that she has to try to guide Syl to control her dark entity, as Syl's mother couldn't, and turned to drugs and alcohol to keep it at bay and made herself in a catatonic state, more or less. And she hasn't gotten quite that far. Syl herself hasn't quite delved into the drugs and alcohol that far, but she has her own issues of anger, which the HD feeds off of. So she's got to figure out some balance of that. When Syl has a vision of a massacre of one of the town's local mob alcohol distributors, she thinks it's just that, a vision or nightmare. But when she calls her coworkers at the police station and investigates, everything is like, oh, wow, this is exactly how I visioned it. What's going on? So it's a little bit crazy. In the meantime, the mobsters are sending people from out of town to come to town, and they're trying to say it's all her that's causing all the problem. This is the plot of the story at that point. And it's fair, but it's not quite as steeped into the Inuit folklore as I was hoping it was going to be. I really wanted a more supernatural flair to it that it didn't have. They were too busy with people cussing at each other and being, like typical mobster, bang, bang, shoot 'em up type stuff. It seemed to me that Syl should be very aware of the shadow entity it dwells inside of her and what its powers were and abilities were, but she seems to either be in obliviousness to it or in denial or both. And I wasn't really sure about that. Now you can see that the 4 floating entities in the background on the cover of issue 2 here. Can you guys see that on the cover?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are like the Pinuaks. And she's like raising them and calling them, and they're actually doing the damage and tearing the bodies apart and stuff. Of course, the main demon entity that's inside of her gets stronger as the story progresses and starts using her as a conduit to tear apart the mobsters and other things that are angering her and threatening her family and her hometown neighbors. Now, for some reason, several of the neighbors understand more of what's going on than she does. And they're trying to say, no, you need to control yourself. Calm down. Don't let the demon, don't let your inner demon get
Get your demon under control, woman.
Yeah, basically. But to no avail. The reveals that come in the final issue are sort of worth it, but ultimately the writers, in my opinion, dropped the ball when it came to really explaining what the dark entity and the Inuit folklore behind it are. And they reduced it to basically Syl's biological father being possessed by the Pinaki, who was an evil man himself, who raped her mother and left her. And so it's all this kind of survivalist women being beaten theme, which I'm like, we have a little bit too much of that in comics right now. But at the end of the story, the father, who's also possessed with this demonic entity, is coming back to town, and they're going to confront each other in the future. Cliff Richards' art is not as his usual quality, in my opinion, in this series. I've seen much better work from him on other projects. It doesn't suck or anything like that, but it does feel like it was a bit rushed at times. And Syl's appearance feels like it's all over the place instead of being consistently on model, which bothers me to no end. And some of the guys look too similar in facial construction, so it's a little bit hard to tell who was who at times. To say I'm disappointed with the series would be an understatement. I was expecting a much more, I don't know what you want to call it, like just a folklore story, more of the supernatural than we got. And it just boiled down to all the men are in the story are exploitative assholes who like to kill each other, and all the women are caught in the crossfire. And I just wasn't happy with that. So I only gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I don't know if either one of you read this one.
I did not have a chance, no.
Okay, well, I would not recommend it then. I hate to say that about anybody's books, but this one just wasn't really up to snuff. Our next book is Cryptology number 1, 1095 from TwoMorrows Publishing, with various writing and art. The genre is interview and historical review magazine for ages 13 and up, released November 2024. In this debut issue, I, the cryptologist, with the help from the Tomb editor Peter Normanton, have exhumed the worst horror comic successes of the 1950s, killer B movies to die for, and the creepiest, kookiest toys that crossed your burning little fingers as a child. But wait, do you dare enter the House of Usher or choose sides in the skirmish between the Addams Family and the Munsters? Can you stand to gaze at Warren Magazine's frontispieces by this issue's cover artist Bernie Wrightson? Now spent some hammer time. Hammer time. With that studio's most frightening films. And if Atlas pre-code covers or terrifying science fiction are more than you can take, stay away. All this and more is lurching towards you in TwoMorrows Publishing's latest and most decrepit magazine. Just right for retro horror fans and featuring the work of Will Murray, Mark Boger, Barry Forshaw, Tim Lees, Pete Von Schally, Steve and Michael Cronenberg, and more. What did I think of this? Well, this is basically back issue magazine for horror buffs. And you guys know I love back issue magazine. If you've watched this show for any extended period of time, well, this is a good thing. Now, as with back issue, there's always going to be some hit and miss articles that don't necessarily line up with my personal interests, but the articles are always well researched and informative. I'm always learning stuff from back issue, so no surprise here I learned about different topics in this magazine as well. The Wrightson article and cover was a sales piece for me, of course, being a huge Wrightson fan. But conversely, not being a fan of either the Addams or the Munsters, I did find the comparison article on the two and their subject quite fascinating to read. The article on the pre-classic horror code comics from Atlas is really nice. And I suspect, even though my co-hosts here have not seen this book yet, they really would have enjoyed the articles on the B horror movies. So there's really something for everyone of a horror genre interest. I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. What do you guys think of that?
I'm a big fan of B horror. I love the so bad they're good horror movies. So yeah, I would have immensely enjoyed this.
Yeah. John?
It sounds fun, definitely. And I'm like, I can't say I'm much of a fan of the Addams Family or the Munsters, although I did direct the music for Addams Family, the musical, and that was actually a blast to do. So
sounds like it would have been.
And of course, both Chris and I are fans of Wednesday, but that's not Addams Family. That's a new thing on its own, really.
Yeah, it's Addams Family adjacent.
yeah, that's fair. Addams Family adjacent. That's fair. So, okay, we got another one. We got all kinds of stuff to review tonight. Galaxy of Madness, 1 through 5, $4.99 each. Publisher, Mad Cave Studios. Writer, Magdalene Visaggio. Artist, Michael Avon Oming. Colorist, Toki Soma. Letterer, Morgan Martinez. Editor, James B. Emmett. Genre, science fiction, action adventure. Released 2024 to the present, still ongoing. It is probably going to be, I think they said, a 10-issue series, so it's about halfway finished. It's got the first arc done. What it's about. In the far-flung, thrilling future of the 41st century, say that 5 times fast. And on the other side of the galaxy, swashbuckling space archaeologist Vigil Virgo is on the cusp of learning a universe-shattering secret, but she'll have to dive into the abyss where no human was ever meant to go to do it. The question is, what happens when she emerges from the other side? what did I think of this? Well, I'm sure that other comics tubers will have avoided this book out of their hypocrisy and disdain for Mags Visaggio, because she's one of those, what do they call them now? The woke creators or something? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, the woke.
Yeah, or whatever. And I suspect that when you go through the first 2 pages of stories with the semi-odd alien speak, it might put some readers off. I had to read the first couple of pages a couple of times, once aloud to myself, to get it, so to speak. So I can see where it might be an easy thing for haters to pick on this book and say this is bad. But if you can get, put your predilections aside and just give the book a chance, shall we say. The characters are interesting enough, and the mystery of the story as to what happened to Vigil Virgo's parents and what is her adoptive Odysseus Rex keeping and hiding from her. It's an okay plot carrot to dangle in front of the reader and keep them interested in the book. The book does feel like Visaggio is trying for something a little more ambitious than that, though. I do see some really strong classic science fiction influences in the story. I see some Alfred Bester influence. I see some Alan Dean Foster influence. I see some Arthur C. Clarke influence. So it's like you can tell that you're trying to do something that's in a classic 50s to 60s, maybe early 70s hard science fiction bend in that tradition and style of that era. But it's not quite hitting the mark. And I'm not sure if that's because Visaggio is trying to hide the influences that they're using. So the most obvious things about it aren't hammering the reader over the head and distracting them, which is always a good thing. But is it that, or is it the editor isn't familiar enough with the possible source materials that are inspiring Visaggio's effort to guide them better in the writing? It could be one or both or a combination thereof. Conversely, Avon Oeming gets it on the art. It's all visually well done. Visual cues and clues are there for those to pick up on them. It really is a nice attempt to do a modern take on some wonderful 50s and 60s science fiction. And I do commend the creative team for the concept, and I really praise Avon Oeming for the art, which is the reason I bought the book in the first place. Unfortunately, Visaggio's got maybe a C+ to B- level of writing here against Oeming's A game, and it's pulling the book down just a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean Visaggio's writing is bad. It just means it's average, which, barely above average, which for modern, it's just, typical modern comics writing, which doesn't measure up to the kind of authors that I feel the writer's trying to capture the essence of. And that's understandable. I mean, it's not like, Magdalene Visaggio is on par with Alfred Bester or Alan Dean Foster, necessarily. So, it kind of, you see where they're trying to go with it, and we're halfway through the story. There's potential that they could pull it out. So let's see where it goes. There's more than enough room to carry the series through and end the series on a high note. So I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. And I don't know if
I'd be pulled in just by Oeming's art. Or that right there would just make me buy the book. So I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Oeming is the draw, and the story, the concept is actually really well done in terms of what it's trying to do. I get what they're trying to do. I just don't know. Like I said, Visaggio I think if Visaggio wrote this as a prose story, they get it more on the mark to what they're trying to do. But when you're doing comics versus prose, there's certain tone that you can put in a writing in prose and drop the hints that you can't in comics necessarily, just because of visual space and visual cues. And
right.
If you don't hit your marks with the dialogue in sync with the visual cues that the art's there, it's just a little bit off. And you have to have a good editor who understands what that subtext and what is it that Visaggio is trying to get across is. And I don't know if the editor really picked up on it or not. So let's see. Our next book, I think this is one you've read, Chris, is Gatchaman June Apex Heart one shot for $6.99. Publisher Mad Cave Studios, writer Tommy Lee Edwards, interior artist Nuno Plati, colorist Giada Marchicio. I hope I didn't slaughter that too bad. Letterer Buddy Dunn, editor Chaz Pangburn of I can't remember what he works on. Heavy Metal Shark Boy or whatever it is. But anyway, logo design and the cover was by Tommy Lee Edwards. Action adventure genre, released November 2024. What it's about: an elite squad of motorcycle riding death bikers have successfully hijacked an armored train transporting experimental international science organization tech, or ISO tech. These thieves are fast, ruthless, and carrying out their orders with greater sharp efficiency, and the only thing in their way is June the Swan and her G3 hovercycle mecha. Is the Gatchaman team's biker extraordinaire in over her head? What did I think? Truth be told, I have not been reading the Gatchaman comics series from Mad Game or prior American ones from other publishers because generally they don't seem to hit for me. I think with a lot of American comic spin-offs from cartoons, not just anime from Gatchaman, but the American cartoons like Space Ghost and Thundercats and the like, just aren't capturing the essence of what I liked about the original source materials. This book's premise, however, seemed like it was, in fact, retelling a classic story from the original Gatchaman animated series, or at least that's what I took from previews of it. And I did like the cover, seen here, and it was only a one-shot story, so I thought I'd take a chance. Story-wise, it does flow pretty well and does fit the Gatchaman themes better than I expected, and it does very much follow a specific story. The Bird Missile of Bitterness from episode 56 of the original anime, and the Blackbird motorcycle game, and the whole June Koji relationship. It's very obvious that was it's not retelling that specific story, but it's clearly derivative of that episode and retelling the same kind of story. It's also taking another story, another episode, and kind of blending it in. So it's like two episodes, taking elements of both and making a new story out of it. For that reason, I am a little bit disappointed in it. I was hoping for something a little more unique than what it was. But to give Edwards credit where it's due, he does manage to keep many of the overall themes true to the original source material, and the small changes he makes to make the story different are viable and respectful to the character and her backstory. However, the art by Nuno Plati is merely passable. It isn't bad, but the storytelling isn't nearly as dynamic as what I would expect for a Gatchaman type story. Most of the fight scenes are very short and direct and do not reflect June's traditional fighting style. In the comic, there's lots of power moves, particularly the Keto throw of a much larger person who is easily more than double her weight through a window. Lots of fist and forearm strikes, which is really not her forte. She's more of a distance fighter who uses kicks and knee strikes when in close quarters, not arm and elbow strikes. So some of the fight scenes in the comic just looked like she was a little bit too much of a brawler than how her normal fighting style is typically presented, and I don't really understand why they did it that way. I wish there had been more to this book than there was, but truth is, maybe my expectations are a little too high on this because I am a Gatchaman fan. But like I say with a lot of the Gatchaman comics, they just don't measure up to the source materials that inspired it. Again, the cover is nice. It's my favorite thing about the book. And maybe I'd feel a little bit differently if the price were a little more normal price range of $3.99 to $4.99. But the $6.99 really killed it because the higher price for a single, the greater the quality is expected of me. So I only end up with a 2.5 star rating on this. What did you think, Chris?
I actually did not get a chance to read this. I apologize.
Okay.
But I remember Gatchaman as a kid. I remember the cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite fond of the TV show. The cover art looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if I'd bite on that $6.99 cover price either.
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably because it's a named product that they went with that cover price. Because a lot of people have affection for Gatchaman. You remember that show as a kid, John?
I hate to say this. I remember it. I never actually watched it.
Yeah, you
Okay.
did. Yes, you did, John. We watched some of it together. We did the whole series. Remember we went through all the episodes?
I completely forgot about that.
It was so unmemorable that you
made
forgot.
a big impression on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
But I
funny.
mean, but he didn't watch all the episodes like I did. He watched specific ones to get certain keys, so it makes a big difference. Whereas I sat down and watched, I don't know how many episodes, 83 divided by it's like 45 hours of stuff that I watched on that. So, but this is like the interior art. And, it's okay. I mean, it's not horrible or anything.
No, it's very utilitarian.
Yeah. But, I mean, compared to the cover, I mean, that looks nice and striking.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Yeah. Which you could tell from the interior art that they tried to go for the more cel shaded, anime style. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, it's just like, and then, here's the guy that, you can see the comparison of her size to him. And later on, this is the guy that she throws through the window. It's like, yeah. I mean,
I don't care.
I mean, don't get me wrong. She's a badass, but it's a little bit, I don't know. Let me, here we go.
I don't care how much Aikido you know.
Yeah. It's just like, huh? She, literally just, I'm going to grab you by the front of your shirt while you're tied up and throw you through the window. So it was like, it just didn't really quite go for me on that. So that's why it got a little bit lower score for me. But, if you are a Gatchaman fan, it's not like a complete waste of your time or money. But, if you're like me who really wants that high-end, really great stuff, it doesn't quite hold up.
Right.
Okay. Our next one is Huge Detective, 1 through 3, $3.99 each from Titan Comics. Writer is Adam Rose, with artist Magenta King, colorist Magenta King and Mini Monet. Letterer is DC Hopkins. I could not find a credit for the editor on the book. I don't know why. I just couldn't find it. Genre, science fiction, crime, mystery. Released August 2024 to the present. There's going to be 5 issues. So we're reviewing pretty much half the storyline here. What it's about. After a race of giants emerges from deep sleep beneath the earth, a bloody conflict ensued in what became known as the Omega Event. Eventually, a treaty is resolved in the state of Brobdingang is created, allowing humans and giants to coexist harmoniously. So they say. Yet tragedy threatens to shatter to peace as a series of murders and disappearances across the United States takes place. And an unlikely partnership is formed between detectives Tamaki and Giant. As the pair attempt to stop the criminal at large, hint, hint, they find themselves involved in a mystery bigger than either of them could have imagined. A conspiracy that could leave both the Giants and humanity in ruins. Can they solve these crimes before the peace between the two races is shattered beyond repair? What did I think of this? Well, I pretty much bought this series because I like Magenta's King work on the Dark Horse Comics series Jenny Zero, which I reviewed back in season 4. And this is very much in the same vein of style of story as well. So far, in this apparently 5-issue miniseries, we have mostly a reasonable setup of the backstory of the Omega Event, where the Huge arose from their underground sleeping world of war between the Huge or the Giants and humanity. For whatever reasons, there was, pardon me, Brooks is just not. Yeah, there we go. For whatever reasons, there was a peace accord, and the Huge took Australia for themselves and operated so-called transports across the oceans for us, where they ride the giants, so to speak, across the ocean, back and forth, because they can supposedly travel the ridiculous distances between the continents very quickly, because that's how big they are. I don't really see where they're any bigger than, say, a giant whale, but yeah, whatever, right? um, some of the basic logic of science and physics don't add up to me on this book, and it's sort of taking me out of the story because I want to try and figure out what's going on. But basically, Giant is there because there are two huge giants missing, and they're trying to see if there's a connection between the humans, this human who is mental and thinks he's a giant, who's giving Tamaki clues as to the murders. And it turns out there is a connection, and they find one of the missing huge bear underneath the lake. But in the 3 issues, the only possible one of who or what is behind this is the mentally off person's mother. And that's only hinted at near the end of the issue, 3rd issue, and that could be a red herring on top of that. The same with Manny, that's the sick person's doctor, who is now demanding he call her auntie. Meanwhile, we know that Tamaki has an illness she takes medication for, but we're never told what the medication is or what her condition is. But she and the giant don't get along because when the giants emerged, one of the giants destroyed her homeland and killed her family and all this other stuff. So it's kind of a weird thing that they're doing. It is decently built up, but again, the science of the world isn't adding up to me, and it's just taking me out of the story. I really have to not think about the science and just try to follow the mystery of the murders as though the characters are all normal. Otherwise, I get hung up trying to understand what's going on. What's going on, how does this world take place? Because if you got a giant who's like 50 foot, 75 foot tall, the amount of air that they're consuming and taking in and expelling carbon dioxide is going to affect the atmospheric conditions in their immediate area for everybody else. The amount of foodstuffs that they've got to consume, and they do little things like here's a tanker, an oil tanker that they to put something so you can have enough sugar or something in there. It's like, really, it's like this. It's a little bit weird, I understand why it's done the way it's done. There's nothing wrong with the way it's done. It's just it leaves you wanting more information, basically. Mm-hmm. The plot of the mystery itself is sort of just stagnant because it's got all these other things going on. I'm not sure how they plan to wrap it up in only 2 more issues. They may leave it open with a cliffhanger and then do a second miniseries to resolve it. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens. King's art is solid throughout. Of course, that was part of why I bought the book. Rose's pacing of the story leaves a little bit to be desired. If the story is to be concluded within 5 issues, the setup shouldn't take 2.5 to 3 issues before you start really getting into the meat of the story, which is what it's taken so far. And yet there's a bunch of info about the characters that hasn't really been presented in full. And the audience, myself at least, is asking too many questions that don't pertain to the mystery of the killings or the deaths of the bodies that they're finding. So I hope as the series picks up and resolves, it's going to be everything's going to work out and make sense, but it's going to be hard to pull off, in my opinion. I do give it a 3 out of 5. It's because kind of like an average comic these days, but I don't know.
It almost seems like this could be a prequel to maybe Attack on Titan or something.
Yeah, maybe, but there is no relation to that though. So, yeah. But moving on to the next one, Ian Gibson's Lifeboat trade paperback, Volume 1, $29.99 from 77 Publishing. Writer-artist is the late Ian Gibson. He just passed away in December 2023. Lettering, Annie Parkhouse. Creative director, Steve Bull. Graphic design by Brendan Wright. Editor, Ben Cullis. Genre, science fiction. This was the second printing version I got. Unfortunately, I didn't get the first printing. I didn't realize it was the first or second, but I found that out when I got the book. Came out in September 2024. And what is it about? It's an ode to Shakespeare as well as a historical science fiction space opera. The story revolving around the idea, what if Romeo and Juliet had had a child within a space version of the American War of Independence, where asteroids, mining colonies are trying to break free from the empire. Lots of political intrigue, and the heroine of the story is being hunted by different parties for her own nefarious agendas, and Deanie, our heroine, has to protect herself and those she cares for. What did I think? arguably best known for his work, The Ballad of Halo and Jones, and his other work for like Robo Hunter. He is something of a treat for American audiences, in my opinion, since most all of his work is from the UK and featured in the 2000 AD magazine that sadly most American comic shops don't feature in their stores. Gibson does some clever pastiches, blending concepts and time periods together while presenting a cohesive and unique tale. Clearly, he's riffing from Shakespeare and he's riffing from specific elements of the American War of Independence. But with him being a Brit, it has a slightly different slant to things. Not in a bad way. It's just that non-American viewpoint of certain things historically is always different from the American viewpoint. And I think American audiences should read more history books and historical fiction from outside perspectives, because our history books are often shit and remove a lot of facts from the narrative to put us in our own positive light. And that tends to color how the rest of the world views Americans as a result. But I digress.
Right. Yeah, they tend to be a bit slanted and jaded, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, just a little bit. But that being said, this book, I can't say it's as strong as Ballad of Halo Jones, but Gibson isn't exactly Alan Moore as a scripter either. We can't expect that quality. With that having been said, I have to look at this in its own context. Gibson's writing is reasonably okay and supports his amazing painted art. Gibson has a wonderful painted style with gouache and watercolor that really stands out in the American market. This gouache watercolor style of artwork is very popular in the UK and European market, but it's very time-consuming to produce, and American publishers don't really like to hire artists that do that style because it's hard to do under the time-crunching style of publication schedule in America. So, you know, you got to know what you're looking for, I guess, for this sort of thing. Now, if I had not been already familiar with Gibson from the Halo Jones and 2000 AD work, I'm not certain I would have bought the book because of the price. $30 is a bit steep. It's a very truncated story for 3 chapters of story, and more than half of the book is dedicated to sketchbook and text by friends of Gibson. Like I said, he passed away in December 23, and there's going to be 2 more volumes. They're probably going to be $30 each. So it's like, I don't know, $90 is a little bit steep to be paying for this, in my opinion. But I would have preferred to have seen the whole thing completed in one compendium volume. But, you know, we'll see what happens. Maybe they will collect it as such. We'll see. I'm not sure why they didn't do it that way, other than possibly being too cost prohibitive to produce. We'll have to wait and see. That having been said, what we're given here is enough for Gibson fans to want the rest of the story, certainly. This is a mature reader series. There is some nudity involved, so I can't recommend it for kids or YA audiences. But if you're a Gibson fan of the 80s work he did for 2000 AD or Ballad Hale of Jones, I think you'll find it a slightly expensive treat. And I do give it a 4 out of 5 rating. And here's some of the art.
Oh, see, now the art on the interior art for me is much better than, like, I don't care for that cover art. I would have passed on it because of that cover art. But this is good stuff.
Yeah.
This is almost kind of reminds me of Asperia a little bit. Just slightly.
Yeah, that looks very nice.
Yeah. That's gorgeous stuff.
And then there's one of the production type pieces from the book as well.
Very nice.
So, okay, John, it's time for you to turn your screen off and do your cosplay.
Oh, heck.
Do we get any premise for this?
Guess who my favorite comic book character is. Like, I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. So,
Grendel.
So you ask, what was that?
Grendel.
Very long tongue.
So you may ask, why Venom? And so, well, basically, it's my favorite character for two reasons. One, I think he's such a visually arresting character. Like, there's no gadgetry, no fancy weapons, no vehicles. You just have, it's just the alien symbiote, the cool spider that's, muscular but not inappropriate. And of course, the teeth, the tongue, the eyes, and the drool. And I just think Venom looks awesome.
And that's just a precursor, because guess what time it is? It is time for Marvel reviews for the first time in a long time. Go for it, John.
And I'll say first, the other reason I like him, I guess you would say it's like the appeal of the tough guy. It's like I'm a peaceable person. I avoid confrontation and trouble, at all costs. But there have been times when, I wish like I would have stood up to somebody, and I didn't. And so for me, there's just something so satisfying about seeing Venom dish it out to people he sees as bad guys, and doing it with just absolute glee and his kind of gallows humor. I just love that. So there you go.
All right, go ahead.
So this is a Venom Lethal Protector from 2022, published by Marvel Comics. Writer, Venom's co-creator, David Michelinie. Artist, Ivan Fiorelli. Colorist, Brian Valenza. Letterer, Travis Lanham. Cover artist, Paulo Sequeira and Matthew Wilson. Editor, Devin Lewis. Genre, superhero action adventure. Released May through October 2022. What it's about. Venom co-creator David Michelinie returns to tell an untold tale of the Lethal Protector. Before carnage and space gods, clones and toxins, and the revelation he was a father, Eddie Brock was a down-on-his-luck reporter who had tried to take his own life and been saved by an extraterrestrial alien. This new story, set during Venom's earliest days, welcomes Michelinie back into the symbiote hive with open arms as he and rising star Ivan Fiorelli unite to tell a horrifying story that not only revisits the wicked web-slinger's past, but also hints at what's to come in his future, featuring Venom versus Hydro Man, the love of Eddie's life in the arms of another man, and a bounty on the Lethal Protector's head that attracts a gauntlet of deadly foes, including the Taskmaster. So what I thought, so the original Lethal Protector miniseries by Michelinie and artist Mark Bagley was published in 1993, but as we discussed on the show, I really wasn't reading comics back in 1993. So I didn't read this until years later. And by that time, I had, read a few of the Black Costume stories, and I'd seen Todd McFarlane's version of the character, but the Lethal Protector miniseries was my real introduction to Venom. And, for the reasons I just mentioned, I was hooked, and I started reading his other miniseries and comic appearances as fast as I could get my hands on them. He quickly became my favorite comic book character, and he's really the kind of character that can get me through even a bad story. Like, the story could be good or the story could be bad, but if it's Venom, I'll read it. So many writers have taken a crack at the character, but for me, no one writes Venom like David Michelinie. And so with these new miniseries, he takes Venom back to his roots, as it were, which I like very much. This really does feel like a continuation of the original miniseries in the best way. You know, there is the aforementioned butt kicking with glee and gallows humor, but there are also some just wonderful moments where Eddie's trying to figure things out. And in one of my favorite scenes, there's a scene where, you know, Eddie just wonders about, you know, the costumes look when it was bonded with Peter Parker versus the costumes look now, and why the change. And the story moves along at a very nice pace. Michelini packs a lot in here, and yet nothing feels too rushed or too drawn out. As for the art, I wasn't familiar with Ivan Fiorelli before this, but I think his artwork's great. I think it's energetic, full of life. I really don't know why they used the word horrifying in the solicitation, because for me, it's not horrifying at all. It's an entertaining story with some real heart, and it's written by a creator who really understands the character he helped create.
Okay. My thoughts. Now, I didn't read the whole series. I read, well, actually, no, I did read all. This is one of the ones I did read the whole thing. I'm exactly the opposite of John when it comes to this character. He's one of my least favorite characters. Could never get into him, partly because he's co-created by McFarlane, and I loathe McFarlane. But that having been said, I did, just to get a feel for it and not just leave it with just John's opinion, because I know how much he favors this character, and I wanted to try to make it a little balanced. But the writing by Michelini is solid and is, in my opinion, the best element of the work. While I don't care for the character, I can't claim that Michelini doesn't write the character well. For who and what Eddie and the symbiote are, both individually and collectively as Venom. The pacing, like John says, is reasonable. It doesn't feel too long or rushed at any given point in the story. There are some humorous characters like Humbug and some semi-amusing scenes, which we'll show in a moment. So what it could have been a darker, much more savage, violent comic is balanced with a good comedy element that, while I think Michelini pulls it off well, I would half expect other reviewers on YouTube to say it was too ham-fisted or corny for their liking. You kind of have to have a feel for that classic Michelini thing, I think, to get it. I could be wrong though. Ivan Fiorelli is an okay artist, but doesn't really have a lot of line weight or depth perception in his line art. So his colorist has to pull off some serious duty to make the pages work, in my opinion. And I think Brian Valenza does a respectable job with that. But if this had been drawn in a different era without the kind of computer colors that are commonplace today, where it's expected that the colorists render all the shading and light sources, and we had just the traditional flat colors of the 1970s or 1980s, the art would have been at best pedestrian. I also didn't see a whole lot of growth in the artwork as the series progressed, but I didn't read the entirety of the series. So maybe Fiorelli picks it up a little in the last two issues. I don't know. The first three were just not enough to hold me through the whole arc. But that's not indicative of the creative team so much as my lack of interest in Venom and the time restraints, because I had so much other stuff to read and review this week. John gave it a 5 out of 5.
Yep.
And I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5.
For me, I think it's one of the best Venom series I've ever read.
That's fair. I think story-wise, what Michelini is bringing to the table, I can see where you're coming from. I've seen better artists, though. I think that's part of what's dragging it down for me is the art. But we'll look at the art real quick.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So this is the second page, and I just think it's a cool shot of Venom in action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you see? It's hard to tell on this. It's got decent gradation and depth perception to it, but a lot of his line weight is very uniform, very similar, and it makes if you don't have a good colorist to create the depth as well, it flattens out the art. I don't know if you can. Do you know what I'm talking about, John? Can you see what I'm talking about or not?
Yeah, I can personally can say yes.
Well, I'm asking John. I know you can because
I can sort of see it.
Okay, well let me see if we can do a little bit better on the next one. Okay, look at the old lady in the top right panel on the first page here. Almost all the line weight is the same. And like what it should have is like the jacket should be a heavier line weight to present like a weight that's like she's wearing something over her. Do you see what I'm saying that way? And if he didn't have like that extra highlighting on her hair, because the line art isn't finished out, it would you'd have a problem with the break between the trees and her body.
Yeah.
Those things like that is what I'm saying is a little bit too open, a little bit unrefined, which I've seen better art for that purpose in that regard. The story, what's going on in the scene is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's interesting that where exactly are the light sources? I mean, because there's like the light sources is really, really light here on the shading of the jacket. It's almost white. And then it's like white, but also orangey from the tree leaves on the back of Venom. And at least he's consistent, but it's like, what exactly is that light source supposed to be? I'm not really sure where that's coming from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So little things like that is like, this was another cute thing with Humbug, which I think is a hilarious character, by the way. But again, you start looking at the line weight, and it's all pretty uniform, pretty similar, and it makes it very difficult. If these were in black and white artwork, I think it would be a lot easier to tell the flatness of the art. Whereas Valenza really pulls out a lot of the depth perception in the work, which is
That being said, though, Ivan he has a lot of I mean, he has good shapes, he has good form.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy the layouts, but you're right, the line weights are an issue for sure.
Yeah. So that was my main thing on that. And then this is another one. Now this is where his line weight seems to get pretty well done. This is where he's like ready to like chop on his fiance's boyfriend or something. I didn't really care for the top third, the way the mouth goes, but it's always kind of hard to draw his mouth when he gets long. It's in fangy like that. But it's interesting because his angle of where he's stationed. I don't know if I can get this closer. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit closer. No. There we go. I kind of wish that. I mean, I understand it's we thing between Eddie and the symbiote, but he's like, "We'll devour his brain. We'll suck his marrow from it and pluck his eyes from his garnish and savor them with a nice Chianti." and then it's like, no, we won't. And I would have liked it. I'd like to see a little bit different in the lettering where it's more the symbiote's voice versus Eddie's voice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would have been a nice, yeah, to differentiate that.
Yeah, because because that would hurt her, and it's about him still caring about his. Now, what I do not like is how the foot is cut off in the design where he's supposed to be sitting or stationed on the wall, and then this panel where she's being helped into the taxi. I just think they could have done a little bit better layout on that, because it's like, where exactly? I mean, his one foot is stationed against the edge of the window panel, I guess, and then his butt and lower back are up against the top of the window or something. It just doesn't quite. I wish they'd done something a little bit different for that angle, But it is what it is. But overall,
well, you've heard, spider butt sticks to whatever it.
Are you sure it's Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, it's we'll get into that one again another time. But we got more Venom to talk about.
You just don't like Marvel, you Scrooge.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we actually have a triple dose of Venom tonight. So Venom Lethal Protector 2 from 2023. Again, Marvel, David Michelinie, artist Farid Karami, colorist Arif Prianto, letterer Travis Lanham. Again, cover artists Paulo Siqueira and Matthew Wilson, editor Tom Groneman. Genre superhero action adventure, released May through September 2023. What it's about.
Pause for just a second. Looking at Paulo Siqueira's covers, do you think that looks better than the interior art by either Karami or Fianelli?
Are you asking John?
Yeah, I'm asking John.
Okay.
It in its own way, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to, I'm not really sure. I don't understand why they got him doing all the covers all the time, but not the interiors, is what I'm asking. But, it is what it is. Go ahead.
Money.
Yeah. What's it about?
Oh, Venom versus Dr. Doom. Venom co-creator David Michelinie returns with another new story set in the sinister symbiote's past, back when Brains and Spider-Man were still on the menu. Prepare for an epic that will take Venom far from the streets of NYC all the way to the kingdom of Latveria. When Silver Sable and S.H.I.E.L.D. come calling, Venom is recruited to stop a tech-worshipping cult from getting their hands on a doomsday weapon. Speaking of Doom, there's a certain supreme leader of Latveria who also has his titanium armored eyes on the same prize, and he's not the only one. Brock is about to be challenged like never before. What, or who, will Venom need to overcome the fiercest foe in the Marvel universe? So what I thought, there's an overarching theme in this miniseries, and it's that no matter who you are, everyone needs help at some point. Silver Sable and Nick Fury need help fighting the terrorist group Vanguard. Pablo Mendez needs help getting his life together. It's cool to see Venom reteam with Silver Sable and the Wild Pack. They had teamed up before in 1993's Silver Sable and the Wild Pack, numbers 18 and 19. But for me, it's Venom and Pablo's relationship that's the heart of the story. And so Venom had previously helped Pablo in 1992's Web of Spider-Man Annual number 8, which was also written by Michelinie. And I like that we get to see what happened to Pablo afterwards. Like, like, I think it was, sometimes, you see characters, they get helped and you never hear from them again. And so I thought it was really cool, you know, to bring somebody that Venom had helped before and see what happened to him and why he needs help again. And I really like that. But Pablo's story is a story of harsh realities, falling in with the wrong crowd, and wanting to make things right. Their relationship gives the story emotional heft, but there's also plenty of action and a venomized Doctor Doom. And once again, the story is nicely paced. Like Ivan Fiorelli, I was not familiar with artist Fareed Karami, but I think he does an equally great job. It might not be, it's not quite as humorous as the first Lethal Protector series, but it's no less entertaining and heartfelt.
Okay. I think this one has a little bit too much fan pandering and nostalgia tripping from Michelini. As John points out, a lot of the story stems from stuff he wrote back in '93, both between the annual and then what was appearing with Silver Sable and the Wild Pack, which was written by Greg Wright. While that panders to hardcore Marvel readers, is that really going to speak to modern audiences who may not have discovered Venom through the movies? Or they may have discovered Venom through the movies, for example. They're not necessarily going to know that history, and I'm not really sure there's enough there to make the readers care about that necessarily. I myself didn't care enough about Pablo, and since his story is part of the heart of the story fell flat for me. Now, that doesn't mean it's not well executed. It is well executed. It means I just don't connect to the character as much as I probably should be. It's still a decent story. I wish that Marvel would do something smart, however, and pair Michelini up with Stephen Butler on this series. Butler was the artist for the Silver Sable and Wild Pack issues in question, and he did a lot of respectable Spider title work back in the 90s as well. These modern guys like Fianelli and Karami just aren't cutting it for me. And while I do like these covers by Paulo Siqueira, it's also kind of annoying when he's clearly ripping off Michael Golden with the figure of Venom here on the cover from G.I. Joe Yearbook #2, which has already been ripped off by many other artists, including Rob Liefeld for Cable in the Mutants issue number 94. When you're homaging Steranko for the rest of the image, and then you credit Steranko on the cover for the back of this, all the stuff around the figure, but Golden's the one who did the actual figure for the Venom is. It just looks and feels unprofessional to me. And so I'm a little bit annoyed by that. I wish they'd done something a little more unique with this cover. John gave it a 4.5. It wasn't quite as good as the first series, as he said. I'll still give it a 3 out of 5 overall, but I do wish they had better. I think they should just hire Stephen Butler to do the series. Work with David. just my opinion. What do you think about that, John? You there, John?
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second there.
Yeah, well, I think you cut out, but I don't know. Either way, where did you lose me?
After you said you wish Stephen Butler and David had been teamed up, you cut out for a second, so I didn't hear what you said after that.
I just wish that I want to know what you thought of that idea of Stephen with David.
I think it'd be cool. I mean, I didn't think of it until you said it just now, but that could be cool.
Yeah. Okay. I think his dog wants to go out for his night. That would be Chris's dogs.
Yeah. Mom's getting his pumpkin.
Here's some of the interior art for the Derek Taramami art. And, I don't know. I mean, the coloring is nice by RF Parentino. Again, a lot of different kind of shading and coloring. I don't remember Venom being able to go invisible kind of blending into the chameleon thing in the walls? Is that something that's regular for him?
I'm sorry?
When Venom becomes like a chameleon and blends into the wall here, is that a normal thing for him?
Yes.
It is? Okay. I just don't remember that. But then, again, Venom's never been one of my favorite characters. So, it's interesting. The shading is different. The musculatures are a little bit wonky, but it is what it is.
I'm not a fan of the patchy style of the artwork myself and the ink work.
Yeah.
It's very patchy. Especially on Venom.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's patchy. I just think it's
just bizarre, kind of. I don't know.
In a way, I know what you're saying. Part of it is the ink work, and part of it is the coloring. Because a lot of this coloring, there's too much gradation in it, and it's creating extra layers of musculature that don't match the ink line.
Right.
And it should be more flat in tone. And so I think that's part of it. And part of it is there's just a lot of I don't know. I mean, his line weight is there. This guy has line weight where it should be. It helps bring things forward and into the backgrounds and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe the coloring is just a little bit over rendered in times.
Oh, it definitely is.
Yeah. So I think that makes a difference. So, and here's some more. And here, like Vulture's, Vulture's is not too bad. It looks a little bit consistent, except for that one black spot, right? Can you guys see where I'm circling that one black spot in his leg?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that doesn't need to be there. But that, it just looks like there's an extra muscle on top that isn't really supposed to be there. But it is what it is. One thing I don't like about Dr. Doom in this picture is like how the armor doesn't go all the way up. He's wearing these weird pantaloons or something. And his knees. It looks weird, but it is what it is. So, and then the Venom Dr. Doom is weird too. It's like, why does he have the purple or the green bloody hands? And I do not like the lettering, the to be continued lettering like that. It's like I didn't know I was looking at a Tide commercial. I mean, that's what it is. It's the Tide logo lettering.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's like, no, that's not good, But other than that,
Venom gets tough stains out.
Especially if it's brains.
Right? Gets those tough blood and brain stains out of your shorts.
Yeah. And now, to conclude our triplet of Venom.
Yes, the Venom Separation Anxiety 2024. Marvel, Michelini, artist Gerardo Sandoval, colorist, I'm going to butcher this name, Romulo Fajardo Jr., sorry about that, letterer Travis Lanham, cover artist Paulo Sakura, and Matthew Wilson, editor Tom Groneman, genre superhero action adventure, released July through November 2024. Once again, it's an all-new tale of Eddie Brock's early days as Venom. Venom will have his revenge against Spider-Man, but when innocent lives across the world are put at risk because of the Purple Man's escape from the vault, the sinister symbiote must put vendettas aside to safeguard the streets the only way they know how. But their reality warping foe has evolved, and the terrifying new level of power that he boasts has come at the cost of Venom's bond and their sanity. This will be a battle unlike any Venom has had before or since, and can't be missed. And so what I thought, and I read some other people's reviews online, and a lot of people said they really like this story. I think if you found the first Lethal Protector story really hammy, you might like this one. But for me, I thought those Lethal Protector stories were amazing. Like, I really truly did. And this one, I feel it's good. Like, it's not great, not terrible. It's just good. So once again, someone from Eddie's past re-enters the picture. This time it's former friend and Daily Bugle reporter Joy Mercado. And also on hand is Zebediah Kilgrave, a.k.a. the Purple Man, who can control people with his mind or through touch, and touch Venom he does, which causes a bit of the symbiote to bond with him. So we get some backstory on Kilgrave via events that took place in Michelinie's Emperor Doom story from 1987's Marvel graphic novel number 27. And you can almost feel for Kilgrave given what happened to him. And there's a nice moment where Eddie considers the weight of having enabled someone to destroy lives. But where I felt those two Lethal Protector stories balanced action, heart, and
I don't know what happened here.
And humor. This story mainly focuses on the action, and again, some people might like that. Some people might like this better than the other stories. And don't get me wrong, it's entertaining. Just, personally, I wish the story was as well balanced as the other two were. And for the artwork, this time it's a mixed bag for me. Like, I think Venom himself looks great in Sandoval style. Some other characters, not so much.
Okay. After reading all this stuff, he got burned out, or he figured out he had to get serious about reviewing these.
I mean, it's just what I honestly thought.
I know, I'm just joking with you. But I'm just saying, this one sounds like one of my reviews.
God help me.
I pretty much agree with everything you had to say on that. Not as strong of a story. I hate the cover to the left, which is another homage by Paulo Sakura to someone else's work from the 80s. What the fuck, editors? Are you too damn lazy to hire the original artists? It's one thing to homage the artists of the past who are no longer with us, but if they're alive, go hire them and rant over there. I think Sandoval is normally a solid artist and a better penciler than the other two that we've seen, but he doesn't show it in this series. It feels very rushed, and the coloring on this series isn't nearly as good as the other two. The line art is so flat compared to other Sandoval work I've seen. The coloring is also flat. I think if he'd had one of the other colorists from the earlier series instead of who we got, it would have been better. But this has a lot of common problems from modern comics art as a whole. Lack of proper line weight to create depth perception, open background instead of drawing something to give a sense of environment and depth. Scenes that make no sense. Why the hell is Rhino standing in a room with a ton of chains dangling from what I presume is a ceiling when all he do is just rip the ceiling down around him and escape? Stuff like that just bothers me. So yeah, not as strong as the other two minis. You give this one a 4.5. Is that correct?
A 3.5.
Oh yeah. Pardon me, 3.5. And
Yeah,
I give,
like
yeah.
I said, I didn't think it was. It's not great. I didn't think it was horrible. It was just okay.
Yeah, 3.5. Right. I misread the stars. That's all. Yeah, you gave it 3.5. I gave it a 2 out of 5. Yeah, it's just not as well done. Here's some of the art by Sandoval and Romulo
Like and
Fajardo. And
and I
go ahead.
and I will. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I will say, especially on the page to the left, like the bottom left panel is like I know Eddie's changing into the symbiote, but like Eddie just really looks off there to
Yeah,
me.
well, yeah, he looks like he's got this really tiny head on a big body, whereas he's got a big head. He's got a normal sized head in panel 1, a really big head, it seems, in the middle panel, and then he's got this little tiny head on this huge body, and it just doesn't look particularly good. I almost thought I missed the cat in the immediate foreground because I was trying to figure out what it was that was. I thought the guy was wearing a shawl or something over that was white, and I missed it. Then I saw the cat in the background of the middle. Oh, that's supposed to be the cat in the foreground. It just it was not really particularly good. I don't like the lighting either on that middle panel. That really hot flare against the edge of his face, and then that like this really white high burn into his neck that made no sense. The weird shading to the right of the face. It just, I get he's supposed to be transforming, but it just doesn't quite. I don't know. I couldn't get into it. What do you think, Chris?
The art style is okay. I understand what they're, that I think that style of art is still, very popular. The line art, the coloring, in my opinion, doesn't go with the line art very well.
No, I think it's.
Yeah, it conflicts with the line art a lot. Yeah, just not a fan. I wouldn't pick this up based on art alone.
DJ Joey Joe says Marvel loves making newer artists do homage covers. Well, the thing is, Paulo Siqueira isn't a new artist. He's been around for 20 years. That's the thing. I mean, if it was some complete nobody, I'd understand it. But I don't know. But that's one of our guys who works at our local comic shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Joey.
Okay, we're going to the next one. Space Usagi, number 1 through 3, $4.99 each. Subtitle White Star Rising. Publisher Dark Horse and Stan Sakai's Dogu Publishing. Writer artist Stan Sakai with Julie Sakai on the backup story. Colorist is Imi Fuji. Letterer Stan Sakai. Genre is fantasy science fiction. Release date October 23rd of 2024 to the present. What it's about: taking place directly after the Space Usagi Death and Honor arc. Stan Sakai's second Space Usagi series sees Miyamoto Usagi continuing to defend the Shirahoshi clan in the far future from their scheming rivals, the Cacciatori. Having survived the Cacciatori and befriending the Mino clan in the previous arc, Usagi and friends have to retrieve a special computer code before their enemies do to protect the clan and their new heir, Prince Kiyoshi, the new Lord Shirahoshi, safe. With the bounty hunter Rogan on their side, Usagi and his team plan to infiltrate Shirahoshi Castle and collect the clan's secret information before the Cacciatori can steal it. With the computer codes in the hands of the Cacciatori, the clock is ticking for Usagi and his team, who will gain access to the Shirahoshi clan's secrets first. Each issue also features a new feature story by Julie and Stan Sakai featuring the character Akemi as well. What I think, as per usual, Sakai is just a master at his craft, even when he's clearly riffing someone else's stuff. See the cover to my left? That's clearly Sakai ripping the 1986 Punisher #1, covered by Mike Zeck and Phil Zimmelman, but yet it still looks uniquely his own. You don't. I mean, you can tell it's that as an influence, but it's still clearly him doing his own thing. I also love how the laser blast clips an ear in the image. I don't know if you guys can see that or not.
Yep.
I thought that was kind of neat, because so often you get people shooting at people and they never actually hit the person, and then this actually hits him. So I thought that was kind of neat. There will probably be a lot of people who will say that Sakai swiped stuff from Star Wars. The problem is most of the stuff that you think he swiped from, he did this book in '93 originally, and that all the stuff that you see came before what's in the storylines that parallel what's in the comics. So if anyone's copying or emulating, it would either be Lucasfilm was being influenced by Sakai, or both were being emulative of a third party, most likely the Kurosawa movies, because both of them were very much into the Kurosawa brand and the movies that he was making.
Lucasfilm swipe? No.
Anyway, I do find other Usagi stories a bit more unique than this one, given the time that this was originally produced back in '93, and what his style is actually showing in the arc, because Sakai adds a lot more hash work for his shading effects in this story than what he seems to do in more recent quote-unquote cleaner work. The book has a sense of comfort to it that makes the reading experience more enjoyable than many of today's contemporary titles, for me anyway. I give it 4 out of 5. With Sakai, it's like, I don't know, there's just a lot of, for me, I guess it's just comfort food comics. I mean, it's like you cannot go wrong with Stan. He just doesn't ever disappoint. Even if he doesn't give you his A game, maybe you guys B- game or something, the work doesn't disappoint. And so I wish more people would read that stuff more than the stuff that they do now, where you get a C game or a B game out of some writer and they're going, "Oh my God, they ruined the character." How about you, John? What do you think?
I absolutely agree with what you said. Of course, I did not read this particular series, but yes, I mean, I agree. You can't go wrong with Stan Sakai.
Okay, there's something missing here. I'm surprised. No, it's not surprised. Here we go. For some reason, it wasn't letting me show the art. Here we go. Come on, Dad.
Gorgeous artwork.
Yeah. And remember, this is 30 years old, just recolored, or being colored for the first time. Because originally it was in black and white.
Yeah, and I appreciate that they left it predominantly flat, because the older style artwork, it just doesn't lend itself to that slick computer coloring.
Mm-hmm. And even here, it does have something of a slick coloring flexion. The space sky is nice and slick, but that makes it stand out more against the simplicity of the color guides for the main figure. And then this feels so Star Wars type stuff, like you said. Yeah. It's like, okay, he's a Jedi here, and but it's still kind of cool looking,
Yeah, it is.
And if you like look at some of the other first, like the first cover that I showed for the issue, it's like Usagi's on a lizard tauntaun type thing instead of, but it is all pretty cool stuff. So. Let's see what else. Okay, that's all of our reviews for tonight, believe it or not. Quite a bit we got done for a change. Mm-hmm. Next week, however, we're going to get really crazy. We've got at least 2 issues of Comic Book Creator, the one that's there, Peerless Tom Palmer, and possibly the one before that. I can't remember who was on it. We've got Midnight Tiger. I've been promising to get that read and reviewed, so I'm going to get that next week. We're going to finish off Kanto, the series. That's be issue 6 of the last story arc. So we're going to conclude that series from Dark Horse. We've got the original graphic novel Imagination. That's done by our good friend David Campiti's group, Glass House Graphics. We've got Howl #1 from Ahoy Comics, Behemoth #1 from Dark Horse, the Power Lords comic #1. And we're going to finally get back into some of our crowdfunding with Aaron Lepresti's Kickstarter and Wraith of God. And we got Space Junk, and then we're going to do a little bit more of those EC brand books from Oni, Shiver Suspense Stories and Cruel Kingdom #1 each, and more, depending on what John has to offer.
Neither do I.
Huh?
Neither do I.
You don't know what you've got yet.
Well, I know what I've got. I just don't know what I'm going to read yet. I haven't decided.
Okay, so there's quite a bit coming for that. So for next week, so come back for that. And on tomorrow night's show, we're going to be talking about The Wild Robot, the DreamWorks feature film, at 8 p.m. And we're all looking forward to talking about that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have one thing to say. Damn you, DreamWorks! Damn you!
Couldn't you wait till tomorrow for that? No, I wanted to say it now.
I was shaking my fist too, as well. You missed that.
Oh, I'm sorry. You'll have to wait to do that for tomorrow.
I can do it again tomorrow too.
As I said, just wait and do it again tomorrow. But until then, we thank you for watching. If you reach us at questions or you have suggestions for books that you want reviewed, Quoth Raven LBR72 at gmail.com is my contact. Norris, Ray Figaro at hotmail.com. And look for Fatboy73 on, I don't know why I dropped out.
Oh, DeviantArt? Yeah.
No, well, I was saying Fatboy73 at gmail.com, right?
No, it's Christopher M. Hall 1973 at gmail.com.
Okay,
Fatboy.
Okay, Christopher M. Hall.
Yes.
Christopher M. Hall 73.
That's all they had. I know it's long.
At Gmail?
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah, Power Lord should be interesting. I haven't had a chance to look at it. And there's Chris's email if you want to reach out to him and hit him up for information on coloring and stuff like that. I don't know what happened to John. Let me see.
It's like poor John dropped out.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. He might have had a problem with his connection or something, perhaps. But anyway, if you have questions for any of us, you can reach us on that stuff. And yeah, so I guess tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Wild Robot.
It's going to be a good talk.
Yes, it is. And so until then, if this silly thing will do what it's supposed to do, There we go. With the Raven, nevermore.